Holy carnival games, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And we're back to talk about not a carnival game, but a video game dragon. Yeah, Deadpool, the video game dragon. This came out in 2008, am I right?
2013.
2013. Man, I was off. God damn, I'm sorry.
Really off.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. What am I thinking of for 2008? Is that when the test footage came out or what?
No, that's when Hulk versus Wolverine happened.
Hulk versus Wolverine. Okay, you see, at least there was one big Deadpool thing that happened in 2008. At least I wasn't like completely crazy on that. Anyway, so the 2013 Deadpool video game. Dragon, we're doing this for a couple reasons. We were going to do this as kind of like a build up to Deadpool 2, but we lost track of time on that. My fault. And essentially, Dragon, what I want to pose this as, and this is going to sound mean, and you're probably not going to like this, but I think it's kind of funny. Deadpool 2 made upwards of $150 million opening weekend, right?
Yeah.
Solo makes 80 million in its first 3 days. I know it made 100 million in the 4-day Memorial Day weekend, but first 3 days, Dragon, Solo makes 80 million. So I would say this is going to be like Deadpool's victory lap. Like Deadpool beat Star Wars, Dragon. A Deadpool movie defiantly had a bigger opening weekend than a Star Wars movie. How does that make you feel as a Star Wars fan? Or as a Deadpool fan, I should say.
Well, I mean, look, as a Deadpool fan, I'll say I'm happy any success that Deadpool gets. But again, I never thought we'd ever in this life get a Deadpool 2, let alone a Deadpool. I'd hoped for a Deadpool 1. A Deadpool 2 was like, that's icing on the cake that, my God, that delivered, thankfully.
All right.
Any success Deadpool 2 gets, I mean, it's even better.
So breaking it down, the reason why we're doing this is because I feel like Deadpool, the game, has a lot of the same qualities that I really appreciate about Deadpool 2. I've said it before and I'll say it again. To me, Deadpool 2 is kind of like, in a loving sort of way for me, it's the Wayne's World 2 of superhero sequels, where it goes way more crazier, way more balls to the walls. It kind of abandons the traditional structure in any sense of the word. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun and it really like hones in on what makes the character great. And I feel like the Deadpool game is all about that. The Deadpool game to me is like the most honest and pure representation of Deadpool in any medium that I've seen. And of course, what I mean by that, Dragon, is since I haven't read the comics, I'm sure that the comics obviously is like Deadpool at his rawest, purest form. But when I think of Deadpool, I do kind of tend to think of the video game because I have watched full Let's Plays of this, Dragon, even before this podcast came out, because when I was following the development of this game. I didn't own a PS. This came out for PS4, right?
Originally PS3, and they re-released it.
Okay, PS3. Okay, got it. Okay, so I didn't have a PS3 or a PS4. If this game ever comes to Switch, I will gladly get it on the Switch. I'm waiting for that to happen. I know you are too, but so Dragon, this was a game that I definitely followed. I was really interested in the whole idea of breaking the fourth wall throughout the game, Deadpool talking to himself, Deadpool having the different voices. It just felt like a lot of fun. And then watching the Let's Plays, I really like the idea of all the different Mr. Sinisters. And so the game itself was just kind of ridiculous. And we always kind of had it in our back pocket for a while to do it in conjunction with Deadpool. And I feel like this is a perfect, Deadpool victory lap of nah, I beat Solo. I know Dragon's resenting me for framing it in that way, but Dragon, you can't tell me that Deadpool wouldn't frame it in that way.
The only reason tell me
that Deadpool wouldn't put some pride in, I beat Star Wars, god damn it.
Well, I mean, we saw in Deadpool 2, it's like, he and Jesus are being talked about simultaneously. First Jesus, and Passion of the Christ, and then me, at least domestically. I was thinking of that great gag from Deadpool 2. And I saw it, by the way, folks, I had seen it for a third time today.
So, nice.
Yeah.
So you've seen it 1.5 more times than me.
Yes, DQ. So I guess my experience with the Deadpool game, to keep it short. So of course famously, I've been following the development of the Deadpool movie. I've been a Deadpool fan ever since Hulk versus Wolverine, which basically is a year before X Men Origins Wolverine. So I've been in as far as the movie was publicly being worked on, from basically 2009 to 16 when it ultimately came out. At least 7 years I've been uh, following the 10-year process of what had been going on in the movie. And I've been a big fan of Deadpool ever since Hulk vs. Wolverine, so I have went in with expectations, so on and so forth. So the point is, the Deadpool game was right in the middle of that period where you knew what could be. You know what movie, again, having read that draft of the script that one time, it was kind of imprinted on my mind. Like, I knew Deadpool was destined for greatness on the big screen. But again, it didn't look like it was ever going to be realized. And 2013 was kind of that hope, that hope going out the window period. Where, oh boy, it's not looking that good for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the game, when the game was announced in 2013, well, like late 2012, came out in 2013. The game was really this cool placeholder for the Deadpool movie that I had hoped for. And basically, for the longest time before that development happened, before that test footage was leaked, the Deadpool game seemed to be as good as it got. And honestly, I was in the day, I was pleased with it. You know what? If we don't get the Deadpool movie, the game was faithful, really faithful to the source material. So
And the game feels very cinematic in its own right.
exactly. So it was being the closest thing I would be able to get to the movie, at least in my mind at that time. I was still happy with the game, to be quite honest.
Right.
And it got it on PlayStation 3, and of course the re-release on PlayStation 4. There's only one issue with the game. I won't really bore you with all the gameplay and everything, with the kind of like all the functionality and such. But because I think it works great, kind of still it's my barometer really is the Batman Arkham games, for like how video games in the most part, like the Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the Arkham games,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. And I will say this: there's only one issue I really have with the Deadpool game. Some people say, "Oh, it's like the game snobs." They'll say, "Oh, it's not that impressive. It's not that highly original." They'll say something like that. I don't know. But for me, the one issue is a replayability issue, and that is really hard to replay because unless you do some digging, which I still haven't done yet, but I'm kind of intrigued to do now. You can't really reset the game, which means you can't. If you want to replay, you're going to have all the weapons, which is kind of cool, but it'll be a little easy.
Gotcha.
That's the one issue I really have with the game in terms of mechanics wise. It's the only thing I'll really bring up with that. All right.
So you can't delete your save file and start over?
At least I know on the PlayStation 3 I couldn't do that, but then again, it may be something I haven't found yet. I'm gonna like if I, you might have to. The point is you have to really fiddle with the settings if you want to do that, which I
Right,
have no
right.
idea.
That's
Exactly, you
weird.
can't do it easily.
Oh man, I miss the days of a memory card, right, Dragon?
Yeah. All right, so I guess going through the history real quick. Not a lot here. So the backstory of the Deadpool game. What gets us a Deadpool game? Well, so High Moon Studios works with Activision. I don't know if they spun off from the same company or not, but the point is they had the long history with Activision. Activision, they did, believe it or not, the first Marvel game they ever did, Tiki, was Howard the Duck.
Wow.
The tie into the movie.
Of course, I know Activision for their Spider-Man games, Dragon, going back to the PlayStation 1.
Of course. So basically, the summarize it, Deadpool's popularity. Yeah, I remember Deadpool's popularity amongst all ages in the first place, way before the movie, way before even Hulk versus Wolverine, when people like myself really got into it. Deadpool's primary, where people really knew the name Deadpool, if you weren't a longtime comics reader, was through video games. Deadpool owes a lot of his popularity, especially to
Marvel
kids.
vs. Capcom.
Marvel, well, again, Ultimate Alliance. There are these two games. Eventually, he was put in Capcom, a little more unfiltered, a lot more fun.
Okay.
But there were two games: X-Men Legends 2: Rise of Apocalypse and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Now I was in I eventually I got X-Men
I've heard
Legends.
both those games are fantastic.
They are, and they work like the same system, like how you play. It's like you're on a team and you can control the different players of the team.
Mhm.
And anyway, so Deadpool, John Kazir, the Crypt Keeper, Raimundo from Rocket Power, he voiced
Sure.
Deadpool. He was the first real voice of Deadpool ever, honestly.
Nice.
And so
Good choice.
I knew him through so I was introduced to Deadpool in video game form. Again, I after the Hulk vs. Wolverine, I did a deep dive and I found Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and eventually X-Men Legends. So again, like when I dressed up as Deadpool in like Halloween's ago, way before the movie, I was always astonished by like, oh my god, kids know who Deadpool is, and of course, no brainers like the video game. Like how what kind of parents are letting their kids read about this guy?
Well, I
Like,
assume the video game was like a very PG-13 Deadpool.
exactly, and again, that always fueled my argument for. I mean, yeah, kids know about Deadpool and they love him, so you can get away with a PG-13 Deadpool at the end of the day. The character is accessible to an audience. Again, the video games are proof of this. So the point is, Deadpool's always had a rich history in video games, and High Moon, who I believe are known for the Transformers games, I think that was one of their big kind of sell points, like in recent years with all the video game upgrades and such since Activision. And either because of the movie, like the rumored movie, or most likely due to Deadpool's growing popularity around 2008 onwards, that's when they really revitalized Deadpool in the comics, and that's where kind of your average show has Deadpool slowly became as popular as Wolverine, but again, X Men Origins kind of bombing really was responsible for that.
Yeah, I
So
remember just like Deadpool becoming more and more popular in the comic subculture as well.
there was a point, Tiki, where Deadpool you really had to search to find. I was involved in those days where you really had to search to find the Deadpool comics. I got a lot of the early Deadpool comics because they weren't really in high demand at that time.
Uh-huh.
And and basically, as the years went on, Daniel Way, who again they used Daniel Way as the writer on this game. So Daniel Way was working on Deadpool in 2008, the Hulk versus Wolverine year, where they're pumping out some additional Deadpool stuff to hype up Origins next year. And this and the point is that there was a point where now Deadpool would make fun of Wolverine for being in so many Marvel books because he was like the Iron Man of a few years. You know, like Iron Man, Spider Man, and Wolverine were like the hottest selling Marvel characters for a long time. And like Wolverine appeared in like 9 books, and Deadpool surpassed that number. Not nine, literally 9 books, but like a whole bunch of like number of books. And there's like a
Sure,
record,
sure.
and Deadpool beat it at one time. They gave him like a whole bunch of series to compete with Wolverines. It's astonishing. So the point is,
Was that a
Deadpool's
time they were doing like Gwen Stacy Deadpool and stuff like that?
No, this is just like full fledged Deadpool. I mean, there was
Oh,
that's
okay.
the thing. It was even before that. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's now like there was a core book where he had all the alternate versions, but even before Gwenpool was way before we blew it up even further than it was before. It's like there was a Green Lantern core of Deadpool's, which was hilarious.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Not my favorite, but it was hilarious. So the point is, it was either because of Deadpool's growing popularity, or like the rumors of the movie, or most likely, High Moon had desired to tell a fourth wall narrative, and I factor, I'd imagine they factored that in. It's like, hey, we want to tell a fourth wall narrative. Deadpool's growing popularity, why not? Want to make it happen. So 2012, at the San Diego Comic Con, they do this great publicity stunt, Tiki, publicity stunt like no other, where they're announcing a Hitmonkey game. Which, of course, Hitmonkey is a character who he's a Howard the Duck bad guy, I believe. I could be wrong on that. The point is, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. I'm thinking of Hellcow. Sorry, that's Hellcow, and it's a hilarious issue. But the point is, Hitmonkey like this really obscure, ridiculous Deadpool villain who
Uh-huh.
was getting a game, and that's what the gag was. So Deadpool, a guy dressed like Deadpool. It sounds vaguely like Ben Stiller hamming it up. He vaguely sounds like that because it
Oh
wasn't it
God.
wasn't it wasn't Nolan North, but it sounded like almost like the dodgeball version of Ben
What if
Stiller.
it was Ben Stiller?
It'd be hilarious, but I no. So basically, this actor crashes the convention and he plays the trailer. He basically reveals what the premise of the game is, and that he took over High Moon Studios and he's making a Deadpool game.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about the game for me, Dragon, is like it's a very meta. It's almost kind of like how we pitched Deadpool 3, Deadpool 3 being about the actual development of a Deadpool 3.
Yeah,
It's a very meta game in that way.
honestly is what Kevin Smith's trying to do with his Jay and Silent Bob movies these days, which I think is hilarious.
Right, right.
So, yeah, basically, it's he plays the trailer, and the trailer was so popular they played it a second time, which is almost unheard of at a Comic Con. Basically, there's so much demand in the crowd, like, oh my god, we just basically show like some footage, some gore, and some fun. Anyway, so they get Daniel Way to write it. Daniel Way, he was look he's kind of a mixed Deadpool writer here. He's kind of a mixed bag because like nowadays we're a lot easier on him. In those early days, he wrote a Deadpool that was primarily it's like, oh boy, that Deadpool was wacky and crazy and kind of was kind of like an action book. It was almost like it was like one step away from being what if like a Michael Bay director wrote Deadpool for a while. That's kind of what it was like, a step away from being that. But Daniel Way, in the grand scheme, he's harmless. Just he kind of wrote Deadpool at his most popular peak, I guess,
Right.
before the movie. Okay, so Peter Della Penna is the president of High Moon Studios, and of course, he's the guy who's on the phone with Deadpool in the game. And they
I'd
re-released
like to
the.
think that he inspired Peter from Deadpool 2 in some ways.
I'd like to think so, but I doubt it. I had the same thought, Tiki. I had the same thought. So they re-released the game when the Deadpool movie came out. That's when they released it on PS4. So it's all relative. So
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. You know what? It would have been a great opportunity if when Deadpool 2 came out, they released it on Switch.
that would be cool. I'd love it
Now
for that.
now I'm upset.
Either that or make a sequel to the game. Who knows?
Dragging the Switch is all about ports at this point, so screw it. Give me another port. All right.
Okay.
So Dragon, hit us with the plot.
All right, folks, here's the plot. So Deadpool takes over High Moon Studios to make a Deadpool game. He sent the script, he sent the script to the game, and the script reveals to him that he has a contract on Media Mogul. There's a contract on Media Mogul Chance White. Mr. Sinister and his Marauders take Chance White's satellites to broadcast a signal. Sinister kills Deadpool's contract, which means Deadpool leaving Deadpool with a bone to pick with Mr. Sinister. So Deadpool teams up with the X-Men to stop Mr. Sinister on Genosha. The X-Men get knocked out. Enter Cable from the future to help Deadpool along on his solo mission. Deadpool embarks on a mission to kill Sinister, save mutant kind, literally flirt with death, and save a few X-Men along the way, all in the service of making one of the coolest Deadpool games ever. So that's essentially the plot of the game.
All right, so let's get started with the Merc with the mouth himself before he got his mouth sewn shut.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah, so we have for me the definitive before Ryan Reynolds, the definitive voice of Deadpool. This is my intro. This is the guy who did the voice of Deadpool and Hulk vs. Wolverine, Nolan North, who I still think I'm so glad they got him for this game because he was that definitive voice, and he was like, if you're gonna do a game, it's supposed to be kind of a definitive Deadpool. This is the guy you get.
And this guy is a veteran video game actor as well. He played Nathan Drake in the Uncharted trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of other people. He's really been around. So yeah, it's great to have him. I also love the whole idea throughout the game of having the voices in his head. Because that's something that they have in the comics that I don't feel like they've ever had the balls to show in the movie.
Yeah, so very simply, and the main reason this is in here, Tiki, is because Daniel Way was the writer who really ran with, and I believe, see, Gail Simone had like a one-note gag at the very end of her Deadpool run, which I love, about kind of like the voices, Deadpool interacting with the dialogue boxes. And that's where the idea is that's the seed of the idea. And then Daniel Way ran with the idea of what if those boxes were other sides of Deadpool's personality, and he put them all over his comics. And again, could go from fun to maybe overkill at times. And that's kind of the balance that Daniel Way walked over. He basically overcompensated a lot with Deadpool, which again is not bad, but just like it's basically kind of Deadpool choking on success at times.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's where you get these voices. And in the script that Deadpool shows us, and he outlines in crayon, which, by the way, there's a line in Deadpool 2 on the rewatch today about saying, well, that plan was written in crayon, which, the voices in this game say, maybe we shouldn't have written the proposal in crayon.
I see what they did there. Little Easter
we do
egg.
when we get to the end of this, I'll point out there's a big causal link between the game and between the movie. We'll get that at the very end of this here. But anyway, so the voices, I believe they're credited as childish Deadpool and serious Deadpool. So I always read it as you have the crazy side of Deadpool, which is the impulsive, younger, kind of like I'm trying to think of how to present the voice here. Like, I thought we were going to get our own video game. So that's the childish voice Deadpool. We have kind of the witty, kind of smart, serious side of Deadpool saying, maybe we shouldn't have written the proposal in crayon.
Yeah, what I love about this is it's kind of like it's a contrast to the usual like angel and devil persona.
Yeah, well, they're all Deadpool.
Yeah, and it's got like more shades of gray to it.
Yeah, the way I read, and I could be reading into this, is that aspects of Deadpool that, when fused together with Deadpool himself, again, they're the balance that you walk with the character. Where you have the witty kind of Ryan Reynolds Deadpool we have now on the witty side of things, and the kind of the crazy immature side. And when they're mixed together, and kind of the guy with the physical skills, you get Deadpool.
Exactly. So just generally speaking, of course, having Deadpool as the star of his own game, Dragon, I love a fan. I'm a big fan of a of a good meta game. And this is like meta gaming at the next level. Like I love how he's constantly talking to the player. He's constantly like, giving instructions. Like it's such a good way to do a tutorial. You know what I mean? It's like it's the best tutorial ever.
And actually, because we were doing this. What I did is I had the PlayStation 4, because again I played the PlayStation 3 version, and I had the replayability issue. So I played the PlayStation 4 version, which I just kind of had, and I just kind of been sitting on since Christmas. And I finally played it to get kind of refreshed on this. And in playing, I played on hard mode because I had done that with the other version, and I played on hard mode. And again, it was definitely a little trickier. I was a little rusty coming back to it after it's 2013. It's been a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So in doing it, I was reminded of all of the old kind of fun trappings of it playing through it. Like Deadpool, he's like if you linger, like Deadpool will chastise you for waiting, and he'll make fun of you if you use all like the basically. I tried to strategize, like I had like bear traps and hand grenades and all sorts of stuff laid out to kind of trip people up Home Alone style. And in doing it, like Deadpool's like, I do not get your line of thinking. It's like he'll make fun of the player, and you're right. He mocks the gaming cliches, the mechanics, the player. So there's, of course, the Heavy Rain opening. When we're in Deadpool's apartment, we make fun of games like Heavy Rain.
Yes,
make fun of like I haven't even accomplished anything. You get awards for just getting up, and it's a lot of fun. And what I love in the writing, and that's the thing, Daniel Way, what he did here is that, and Daniel Way, he's a decent introductory point to Deadpool, because he kind of never did as good as the original writers, but what he did here is a greatest hits version of Deadpool, which fits, which is what the game needs. And in doing that, we start with the classic Deadpool job. You know what I mean? And especially with the Deadpool 2 movie, I love Deadpool going to work. Deadpool kind of on the job. And it's half the reason I love the character. So we kind of had him getting the contract in the beginning. What we do in the kind of the game is we use this as like a way of like getting like a training, getting the mechanics down. It's like a practice level almost.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Deadpool talking directly to the character is like a perfect way to introduce a tutorial to us and make it engaging and make it fun.
Like when Bruce Campbell did that Spider-Man game, with the Spider-Man 1 game.
Oh my god, that was good too, Dragon. That was that's a good example.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's very much kind of like that, but for a whole game.
Right.
So of course the best running. Let's talk about the best running gag throughout the game. The budget.
The budget.
Gag.
Yes.
Oh my god.
This struck a chord with me, Dragon, and this is like probably the main reason I want to play the game, is because with the budget, it introduces us to a bunch of different gameplay styles. Like at a couple points, the game turns 8-bit, and I bet that really throws you off when you're actually playing the game, right?
A little, because it does basically have like an overhead shot, and like you can still do some of your stuff, but it's wonky. We have a lot of different game styles, because again, we have like old carnival style games. We have 8-bit. You have like you're sliding down, like it's like an old it's like a very simple game where like you're sliding left or right, and you do like this inner tube high flume ride when you're collecting all these coins. It's like a bunch of
right, and that's what impressed me about kind of the game design here. Right? Like I imagine like none of these are, like the best in class that you're ever going to see in gaming. Like,
sure.
The 8-bit stages aren't going to be like, oh my god, it's better than Contra. But
there's an up-to-date reference.
No, I'm just saying, it's like
Contra.
Okay, you know what?
No, I'm saying it's a hilarious. I love it.
Contra is a masterpiece, sir.
All right.
No, but I feel like this game is kind of like a jack of all trades, perhaps a master of none, but at the very least, you get a lot of variety in your gameplay.
my favorite cutaway gag we have the budget. Like him basically again he's talking to Peter Del Peno, Hyman Stews, and he keeps calling him and saying, Deadpool, you're going over budget. It's always my favorite moment. I use this in the Deadpool movie review that I use because I always love this shot where Deadpool says, yeah, Deadpool was the Deadpool the trailer to our game was like the most one of the most they had 15 million views on opening weekend. Then we cut to 1,000,001, 1,000,002.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my god. Oh my god.
So
Yeah,
it's
that was fantastic.
so so yeah, it's so funny with those the change in style. It's so funny to see the game kind of cheap out in places. It's such a fun, again. We're having so much fun with the game thing. Of course, also I love it when he's messing with the camera, where the players like looking over his shoulder when his contract's being when Chance White's being kidnapped, and like he's like, "Hey, get the camera on me." He's like threatening to beat the player up while he's on the phone. I was like Peter talked to his crotch. Oh, it's hilarious. Yeah. All right, well, I mean, unless you get anything else in general with Deadpool or like the opening levels you want to.
No, I like I said, I think it does set up the world of the game very well, and I like how, generally speaking, the game itself and the gameplay. I really like how the gameplay, like weaves its way into Deadpool's personality. That's a really creative way to go with everything.
Yeah, like there's this really cool action bit where he jumps on a helicopter and you have to sneak around. It's like the practicalities of being Deadpool. Okay, if you're dead, like it puts you in the like how the Arkham games put you in Batman's shoes. This puts you in the crazy shoes of Deadpool, almost as if you're a sidekick, like a Weasel, like a Bob, Agent of Hydra, where you're following him. And the cool thing is like he jumps on this helicopter, says, fly or die, your choice. And of course, when the helicopter blows up, he says, we're flying. We cannot fly. Well, it's good to have dreams, though. And so here's the thing, T. So I'm already asking this from the Deadpool movie. So he does, maximum effort is not a catchphrase, and now they've adopted into the comics since the movie. But it's not a catchphrase, but like the gags like this, where says, you know what else it's good to have? Skills. Like
Right.
skills was he always had like kind of a fill-in catchphrase, like like that or something. Of course, the C4 guy, like F math. I love that's a Deadpool I can get behind. That was like F math. Just use it all. Just use all of it. All right.
Okay, so the X-Men are also in this game, of course, at least a few of them.
Yes, and of course, now, folks. Again, now, Tiki, remember you remind me and the folks at him. So you watched this before you saw Deadpool 2, right?
Yes, yes,
So it's
correct.
so funny, and again, a big reason I recommended that we do this before the Deadpool 2 initially is that a lot of the stuff we have in this game, of course, fits into the Deadpool movie, like tropes and ideas that we see in this game. We do see adapted into the movie and to an extent, not directly, but you see in general. Again, they hit Deadpool so well, it's no brain to adapt this into another Deadpool movie where we have more of the X-Men, which we have a little glimpse at with Colossus and Negasonic, and of course we meet a few more. And here it's Deadpool having these not so cordial interactions with the X-Men and kind of being a wannabe X-Men.
So I love all the stuff with Wolverine, and it really makes me want to see a Hugh Jackman Deadpool versus Wolverine movie.
Yeah, and of course, it's a reunion from Hulk versus where it's the Steve Blum Wolverine, just like it was
Oh.
there. So you got a kick out of that too.
I love how Wolverine is just like he's knocked out like throughout the game. Like he's just like every time it looks like he's gonna do something, he just gets knocked out again.
Yeah, what's really cool too with the inclusion of Wolverine is that I love that this game references the fact that Deadpool spins off of both, and I love that both characters in the movie. We spin off of the game too. He spins off of Wolverine and Cable. Again, those two characters Deadpool is kind of tied into in his DNA, and we have both of those characters in this game. So we reflect a lot of like kind of diehard Deadpool things there.
Mhm.
So the wake up call gag with I call it the wake up call is let's wake up the furry one. Of course, it takes him like seriously. You can play that for not 5 minutes, like he says, but you can basically slap him awake, and so you say
Oh
all
my
these
god,
hilarious.
yeah,
You say all these hilarious. Every time you slap him, Deadpool says something different.
yeah.
And it's very funny. So okay, let's talk about Domino.
Okay, Dragon, I got to admit, with some of these characters, they kind of blend together because it's been a while since I sat down and watched a whole Let's Play on
And
this.
there's not a lot to them either. So it's like kind of a quick
Okay.
rapid fire. So Domino, of course, well, from the Deadpool movie, this is what Domino classically looks like. And this is kind of this is a decent barometer for kind of what I got to tell you, by the way, too. It's the correct sign of some Deadpool too. Watching the movie more times, I kind of think Zazie Beetz. She's really, really growing on me as Domino. I still think she's just right, but I got to tell you, she might be better than Domino in some respects. I'm really liking her.
I mean, that's kind of the vibe I was getting with the very little I know about Deadpool or Domino from the comics, and from this as well, because I feel like this is what I was talking about with the Deadpool 2 stuff, where this this Domino is, more of kind of like the rough around the edges Domino, whereas the Zazie Beetz Domino is more of the optimist.
Yeah, that's the thing. Domino doesn't really get a lot of happy moments in the comic, and we kind of have that. We have that in the movie, so it was kind of a refreshing change for her. So I guess that's why I think it's so refreshing and nice,
It almost kind of reminds me of the revamp they did on Quicksilver.
Yeah, I think it sounds
Uh-huh.
And again, with Domino, let me make it clear. So again, I'm loving the Zazie Beetz one that has been introduced now. But again, this is a very on the money Domino. We don't do a lot with her, but basically she has a past with Deadpool. She was introduced with Deadpool, and she kind of bounces between Cable and Deadpool. And the idea here is like maybe they had a one night stand, but she's another mercenary that kind of has a run in with Deadpool now and again. That's kind of who right. is basically a mercenary turned X-Men. That's just the gist with Domino.
Okay, Psylocke and Rogue are kind of paired up a lot throughout the game, right?
Yeah, well, Domino and Psylocke in a very very nowadays misogynistic kind of scene, but still just it's kind of fun. Just Deadpool kind of flirting with Domino and Psylocke. But Rogue gets the most to do out of all the X-Men here with Deadpool.
Oh, right. Rogue is the one who kind of drives the plot more.
Yeah, well, she's definitely she has a whole section of the game, and you can actually play as Rogue. So Rogue gets the most to do out of all the X-Men. Psylocke is just there for eye candy and basically a reminder of X-Force, because Psylocke was actually on the X-Force team with Deadpool.
Right.
And she did not die. So Rogue. So again, Psylocke she's there for eye candy. Let's be frank. Okay, so Rogue though. So Rogue, it's so interesting. They called this in the comics now. Rogue and Deadpool have a vaguely romantic relationship in the comics these days, which is fascinating.
Yeah, it's something I wouldn't expect from the two of them, but
yeah, it was just kind of like a fun, like little kind of future call they kind of made here. Deadpool.
Then again, I feel like one of the things that I really want to see with Rogue in a movie is kind of like get the classic Southern Belle version of Rogue.
Yeah, because we just have kind of she happens to be Southern, and she's just kind of like closed off and everything else. She's traumatized from kissing the boy. We don't really have her come out of her shell in the movies, so you're right about that.
Right.
Yeah, it's basically we have this great bit in the game where Rogue she absorbs Deadpool's powers, and it very much feels like an X-Men 2000 the X-Men movie from 2000 reference, where she absorbs Wolverine's healing factor, and we kind of do that in a very, very kind of faux romantic setting here, where we got a suck face like there's no tomorrow, Rogue. Or
oh God,
I just love it when she absorbs a little too much of Deadpool's healing factor, and she absorbs his crazy too. And doing that, she has the voices in her head, and they're commenting, "Oh my God, for a change, we have boobs. Let's enjoy this." It's just. So it's fun, especially reflecting on seeing how far we've kind of done with Rogue and Deadpool having some genuine feelings for each other. It's kind of cute.
Sure.
In general, iconography of the X-Men just generally. We have the Blackbird, which has that hilarious.
I love the back and forth with Logan and Deadpool about that. It kind of reminds me of some of the stuff we get in Solo with the Falcon.
Yeah, it's the idea that Deadpool. What they did here is like Deadpool. He didn't beg to be on the X-Men, but he did beg to fly the Blackbird.
God,
I've always wanted to fly the Black. I love how genuine he is. It's like kind of Bender.
He's like a fanboy about it.
It's kind of like a Bender from Futurama thing. Or Bender is so cynical, so sardonic, but at the same time, there are a few things in life he does care about. Really,
yep.
Much so, he's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to fly the Blackbird." And he almost kills all the X-Men. He flies the Blackbird.
Oh my God.
And I guess we go to Magneto's island. So I don't. But I'll put it to you this way, Dave. I know you. I don't think you have this in the version that you watch. But let's just say the game does have like a little like if you click whenever you go to any location or you meet a new character, a little thing pops up and like you click X or click a button if you want like Deadpool to give you like a little mini spiel and little recap about what the thing was in the comics.
Uh-huh.
And so it's very useful. I love that they do cover their bases with that. So it's all there for even if you're just coming into it clean. But just we go to Genosha. Genosha is like the safe haven island for mutants that Magneto had, and let's just say things went wrong, Sentinels attacked, and like a lot of the population got slaughtered. So essentially, that's why Genosha's in shambles and also has all the robotic Sentinel parts like all sprawled about. Just big. Just Magneto had a safe haven that was corrupted.
I really love the Sentinel imagery in this section too.
I love how we utilize Sentinel image. I love it's all like we blast away walls with Sentinel parts, and we have like the boot. Of course, Deadpool fashions a Sentinel boot to a very important plot point.
Good game design there.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the big. Let's talk about not premium. But let's talk about cable.
All right, so this, of course, Dragon, being my introduction to cable in a way.
Yes.
And yeah, I gotta say, I was really I like how the game kind of addresses that cable can be boring.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that Josh Brolin actually kind of overcame. Was Josh Brolin was almost kind of like the Black Panther of the Deadpool universe, where he's the one guy that never really cracks a smile, but at the same time he fits in really well to the group.
Yeah.
So in the game, it's very much kind of they're a little bit more self-aware about it.
Yes, and honestly, T, before the movie, this was kind of my whenever I thought cable, whenever I had to explain cable to someone like you or just anybody, I would always cite the line from this game, like it's all cable always coming here with this dire warning from the future crap.
Right.
Honestly, this game, this scene, this is kind of the perfect kind of explanation of what the whole cable Deadpool dynamic is. And basically, we have Fred Tatasciore does an excellent job here. And something occurred to me when I really had to look into this game I never thought of is that Fred Tatasciore, and I could be wrong here, I think what Tatasciore is doing with the cable voice, and it's hysterical if he's doing it, he's making cable sound like Kelsey Grammer.
I could see that, yeah.
I love, of course, the fun of Kelsey Grammer played Beast in the X-Men movies.
Oh man!
And Tatasciore does. He did the voice of Beast during one of my favorite the animated shows with the X-Men, Wolverine, the X-Men. Basically, the same guys did Hulk versus they did the Wolverine animated show. It's Steve Blum. They used a lot of their favorites on. Anyway, so yeah, basically this game has the perfect layman scene of an explanation for Cable and Deadpool, where it basically has the image we see before us, folks. Cable, we do the classic convoluted Cable thing. He comes back with a dire warning from the future. Deadpool in his mind. Deadpool is basically. You want to tell him what happens?
Yeah, in Deadpool's mind, it's like, wait, are you even listening? Oh, sure, Cable, I'm listening. And then we flash into Deadpool's mind, and he's just riding on a little grocery store carnival ride.
Of course, it's something so funny. Logan eventually did this too, which is so funny. Yeah, we have like the little ride outside the grocery store, like X-23 went on.
Right.
So yeah, basically they have this history of as the straight man and the comedian. That's really kind of what their dynamic is. And Deadpool's just like he's trailing on, and like the voices. I love how he puts one of my favorite things is he has like the googly eyes on his hand to voice like the serious Deadpool, so he gives like a face to the voice in his head. Like, we should probably pay attention. This is probably important to the plot. And he says blah 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 blah. And Deadpool, I don't know if you saw this, Tiki, but Deadpool at a point, he's breaking the fourth wall, begging the player just to push the button. Because it's so boring. And you see him
I saw that.
And he begs you, and he actually starts to cry if you let it go on. Well, he cries. he cries before eventually. And here's the thing: if you let it go, eventually it'll do this. Like he'll just shoot himself in the head to not listen to Cable anymore. Again, that's their dynamic in a nutshell. It's perfect.
Okay, so Mr. Sinister, essentially this guy is kind of the ultimate "we're sorry, Deadpool, but your princess is in another castle" gag.
Exactly, and that's so again, short of the budget, that's the best gag in the movie. Where basically we do the roll credit, we're done here gag, and I can't get enough. And that's our big. I think for me, that's why I'm accepting the Solo parable, because we have the big Star Wars reference in this game.
Sure.
Where, in Deadpool, he kills Mr. Sinister. What he thinks is Mr. Sinister, he throws it like crotch first in the Cable's face. Which again, So in the Deadpool 2 has Cable getting accidentally teabagged. And just roll credit. We're done here. We have like dun, 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 like the George Lucas credit, like the directing credit. That wasn't Sinister. That was a clone.
God.
It's hilarious when we bring it back a couple times. Where Deadpool thinks Mister we the same way we mock Cable for like his convoluted stuff, we do the same thing, but more so with Mister Sinister, and it's priceless.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sorry, go on.
No. I'm just saying, like, yeah, you're right.
Right. So Mr. Sinister, he's a classic. So again, Cable and Deadpool, they had a famous run together. Where, they were teamed up and it started like a buddy cop thing, where they didn't like each other at first, and they kind of grew to work together a lot. And one of the famous villains from their run is Mr. Sinister, because Mr. Sinister, again, the reason I've always expected Mr. Sinister to be in Deadpool 2 and just stuff with Cable in the future, because he's fascinated by he's always about splicing mutant DNA and creating like the perfect mutations in humans and just mutating people and doing all sorts of crap like that. And he's obsessed with Scott Summers and Jean Grey, those mutants, which of course are Cable's parents. And look, folks, if there are any diehard Cable fans out there, yes, I know it's Madeline Pryor. You know it's Jean Grey. Screw you. You know I'm right.
God.
You know, come on. I don't. No one.
I have no dog in this fight, Dragon.
I'm just saying, anyone don't give me that Madeline Pryor BS. I know that's the official answer. I don't care.
No idea what the fuck you're talking about right now, buddy.
Just the point is, just the clone of Jean Grey. It's stupid. Anyway.
Okay.
The point is, what the clone talk though is that Mr. Sinister is he's all about clones and mutant DNA and such, and he targets his Cable's family. So he's a recurring villain for Cable and Deadpool, and I love that Sinister. He really just he doesn't care about Deadpool. Just Deadpool keeps getting in his way, and then to the point where the arc of Sinister and Deadpool in the game is that Sinister becomes a Deadpool bad guy by the end of it. And it's just like he has that great John Woo. Well, we'll get there when we get there. The point is just I love that he's Sinister.
Deadpool becomes Sinister's arch nemesis by way of slow, mild annoyance.
Exactly, and what I really love about it is that here's the cool thing, Tiki. And again, they do this in like a little like get to know your character segment. Mr. Sinister, he's a mutate, so he is a human guy who like he experimented and he became mutant. So again, he is a mutate, exactly what he calls Deadpool. So he which is why Deadpool can never become an X-Man, because he's not a born mutant. He's a guy who was mutated by Wolverine's blood, given the healing factor, et cetera, et cetera. And Mr. Sinister is like an elitist mutate who keeps calling Deadpool vile, and he's basically, you are the ugliest form of mutate. I create genetically perfect mutates like myself.
Mudblood in Harry Potter terminology.
That sounds about right. I'll go with you on that. Yeah.
All right.
So it's a cool dynamic in that arc of just kind of like the elitist mutate. It's almost like a Caddyshack thing, just like the the elitist versus kind of the lovable loser slobs.
Sure.
So let's see, real quick. Mr. Sinister has his Marauders, and this is from the comic. All these guys are from the comic. Sometimes he has like a fourth guy, but like a guy named Harpoon, but they say streamlined it. And what we do here cleverly is that again, with a villain like Mr. Sinister, we have clones and mutations and all sorts of mad science like that, and you can easily we pare it down like we pared down Cable. So basically, Deadpool's fighting archetypes. So even if you don't know who these characters are, you don't need to know. You just need to know what their shtick is. So
it's
you have
kind of like the X-Force of this game in a way.
In a way, yes.
Like the anti-X-Force.
Kind of like an evil X-Force, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Arclight. Now, Arclight, that's again, I'll just know that they're from they feel like Sinister's usual cronies. That's really the only detail you need to know. But Arclight, she's the kind of the Deadpool makes fun of her for being most likely a she-male, which I don't think she is. I just think Deadpool just being really harsh on her. And what I love with this is that kind of it's so trippy, Tiki, is that years later we get Angel Dust, who essentially is like Arclight's kind of like Angel Dust we get in the first Deadpool movie. And then we have a character like Vertigo, who just has an annoying powder, which has like the gross out nastiness of like makes Deadpool throw up in his mask. And then you have Blockbuster, who's like the discriminant muscle, which we almost had in the Deadpool movie before we changed it to Angel Dust. So it's pretty much
very similar to the Blockbuster we have in the Suicide Squad animated movie this year, Dragon.
And Tiki, it's so funny that again we have both DC and Marvel have a had a very simplistic muscle bound, just block character by literally the same name. The only difference is one is hyphenated or spaced out. That is
Oh my
the only
god.
difference. It's the same. Just
That's great. That's
just
great.
one's
I
a
love
mutant, the
that.
other one's a mutant, one's like chemically mutated.
Uh-huh. Oh man.
All right, let's see. So that's really, I mean, unless you have anything major you want to say that's inside.
Nah, let's move on. Okay, so Lady Death, of course, big thing that they did with her in Deadpool 2. We don't want to talk too much about that in case you guys haven't seen Deadpool 2 yet. But yeah, Dragon, I really like this. I don't like what the Deadpool rap. They have this whole section with Lady Death, and I'm like, really? Do we need those lines about her?
Right. Well, Lady. So I love Lady Death, and Lady Death is a deep Deadpool pool. Sorry, never run into that before. I guess she's a great Deadpool.
Ah.
Okay, no, seriously, she's a great pull from the early Deadpool comics. It's Joe Kelly, basically in the Deadpool origin. Like the one thing that we didn't get in the Deadpool movie, in the first Deadpool movie, let's say, without saying anything, is that we we excised the Lady Death of all because Marvel, owned like the rights to Lady Death and such. And from the Joe Kelly run, which is the origin, basically when Deadpool he was in Weapon X, it was more of like a prison setting, and every time he died, he flirted with death, and he wanted to die so he could be with Lady Death.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we do that here, and this is honestly my favorite version of Lady Death. Probably, I love the design of her. I love we have a romanticized version of relationship. There's always this question with Lady Death of does does is this relationship forged on her wanting Deadpool because he's unattainable and like the minute she gets him she'll like drop him like a bad habit, or is it that she actually likes him because every time he dies they kind of spend a little bit of time together? I like to think it's the latter. The romantic in me likes to think it's the latter.
I'd also like to think it's the latter, Dragon.
And I really think they portray that in this game with the whole, they play the Patsy Cline crazy.
Yeah, and I really like all the atmosphere where we have Lady Death in this game, and it really kind of takes everything to a new level. And what I like about that, Dragon, is that it kind of like it takes all the fourth wall breaky, like, budget stuff that we get, and it kind of contextualizes it into the actual game where we get this stuff that is messing with the dimensions of the game and kind of throwing off the gameplay, but we get it in a very natural way because we have it Deadpool like kind of on the precipice of death and kind of literally flirting with death. So it makes a lot of sense that that section of the game would be the most abstract.
Yeah, and again, we really it's kind of neat that story wise, Deadpool has been tasked by Lady Death to kind of help her out, kind of do her favor, which again implies there's a relationship with it there. And it's like Deadpool's dealing with the supernatural, which is something. Again, it's just a fun call, just the way things work out. Deadpool in the comics, he got married to kind of a supernatural. I believe the term, and it's an actual thing of what she is, and they run within the comics. She's a literal succubus. That's what Deadpool eventually gets married to, like a literal succubus. Like she's like a queen of like, if not hell, then like a supernatural hell of some kind.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so Deadpool, he's dealt with the supernatural, and that's kind of what we do here through Lady Death. And what we do so cleverly with this Tiki, and there's like a little one-off gag at the very beginning of the game that kind of you think, okay, they're gonna mention it once and they're done with it. But I love thematically how it's in all the Lady Death segments here, where Deadpool, in the very gratuitous but hilarious bathroom scene, where basically they're making fun of Heavy Rain, where you can do all sorts of weird stuff in that game, and basically you follow Deadpool into the bathroom, and he's it's nasty. And he's washing his hands, and he basically looks in the mirror, and you see him, the unmasked, scarred face of Deadpool, and he's like, "This is gonna be like one of those tragedy behind the comedy things, is it?" And in the Lady Death, basically Lady Death asks Deadpool to. Sinister's harvesting DNA from the corpse of mutants, and basically that's how he attains his samples to experiment with. He just Genosha's full of dead mutants because of the massacre that happened. So basically, it's like, hey, dig through the catacombs, find mutants. So bring the bodies like in a mine cart so we can harvest the DNA. I can experiment with them all, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Lady does like it's defiling. Basically, she can't get the souls of the dead guys because the bodies are being tampered with. I think that's what she's saying. And basically, Deadpool has to go through these almost Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones-esque trials, but done through a carnival setting, which is hilarious. Like it was like a Zoltar machine. There's like a feat of strength thing, and of course there's the carnival ride from from hell essentially.
And you know what, Dragon? I'm glad you mentioned the Arkham games because this section of the game, like I mentioned, the distortion elements of the gameplay.
Kind of like your Scarecrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. You're absolutely right, and then put that together. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, I was getting at too is like when we're doing these carnival segments, there's like this one really memorable one where he's basically has like the ball thing. Basically, you're on the he's on the boat, little boat, not the little motor boats, but the next best. And basically, it's like you're shooting. It's like one of those old I don't know what the proper term is, but it's not like the little fill the clown with the water balloon thing. It's like one of those guns that shoots balls, and he's shooting balls at like targets. He's aiming at targets, and basically there's this really trippy image where you see all these weird clown doctor things. Basically, he sees all Sinister's henchmen as clowns. They have like the makeup, and they have the sinister lips and the red eyes and everything. So they look pretty much like clowns, and it's kind of funny in all Sinister's henchmen.
Uh-huh.
Basically, Deadpool's imagining evil clown versions of doctors from the Weapon X program, from the workshop, the place where he was tortured by Ajax and Francis and such. And basically, we see and reference Dr. Killebrew. Dr. Killebrew was original. Francis had a boss in the comics who was Dr. Killebrew. The point is, we touch on the horrors of what drove Deadpool crazy. Basically, we explain why we're hallucinating and seeing all these crazy, trippy things. We explain why Deadpool's a little crazy. And we did that in a natural.
What I like about this section is that it really goes into the mind of the character. You know what I mean? It explores the psychology in a really deep way.
Exactly. Okay, so again, on the whole, I briefly I mentioned it before. I love the Day of the Dead design on Lady Death. I thought that was a really inspired choice. That's why it's probably my favorite version because it's like the best looking death that we've. Sometimes she's a skeleton lady. Sometimes she's like human, but like she wears like a hood. And there are other versions I can't really disclose anything about. But yeah, she's this version was probably the best, and I love the '40s detective noir thing at the end there, where he's like yes, Wade, but there's only one thing that means we can never get together. You're alive. So we can't be together. And again, it's like a noir thing. We do black and white with Deadpool, like an old fedora hat on. It's cute. It's like again, it makes me hope that these two, again, it's a morbid future that could never happen. But you know what? I like to think she lives.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so then we get to the big showdown with all the Mr. Sinister clones. Dragon, they're all there.
Yes, so my God, this ending is insane. I got to tell you, playing through, I never had again. It's been a while, and I don't know if PlayStation 4 maybe made it a little harder when they redid it. I don't know, but if you play it on the hard version, you have fighting Sinister's clones is not the hard part. It's getting there. That's the hard part because you have to fight all the henchmen.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I really like how at the end of the game it just kind of just goes balls to the walls. You know what I mean? It's like after the Lady Death stuff, it's like, all right, we're gonna throw you into the most difficult part of the game, and we're just gonna make it like you wanna win this thing. It's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, and again, it's like, how do you amp it up? Well, okay, we throw all the previous henchmen, we throw the Marauders again, because, we just kill them all. Well, they're clones. Okay.
Exactly.
We're going to have clones and clones among, like, a sea of clones of Mr. Sinister, and they're all over the place in the Citadel. I remember even the first time I played it, was like, oh my God, this is crazy. They're everywhere. So I love that Deadpool had this crazy plan that we set up, and it was a mystery plan. Of course, Deadpool kind of teasing the player, saying, "Oh boy, we got you guys, you just wait," because he had Cable retrofit the Sentinel boot, and we had the dog, Mister Snuggums, who, by the way, and again, something we'll say this much, we kind of do some familiar Deadpool stuff in the Deadpool 2 movie with Deadpool losing limbs and the way he heals and like being turned backwards for a moment, let's say.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. And the dog's a cute bit. We make sure we have remember that disclaimer, by the way, when like it looks like the dog had a grenade in its mouth, and we say no actual dogs were harmed in the making of this game.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, the point is we pay off the plan with the boot, and I love the ultimate payoff where Sinister he bursts through the doors as the X-Men finally, as they wake up and they show up at the Citadel. It's like, okay, we're gonna kick some butt, take some names, and like Mr. Sinister, he's had enough. He's fully okay. That's it. Deadpool's actually a problem
Well,
now.
Mr. Sinister basically just goes into like evil villain monologue mode.
Yeah, he has like such a rant, such a like, he's been so ticked off by Deadpool the whole game. You're foul, you're foul, and I love this little touch too. Boy. The minute he opens the door, he had these John Woo pigeons. In the John Woo action movies, you always had these flying pigeons whenever you open the door. You're on a rooftop. Right. Always these random pigeons. Literally, they put random John Woo pigeons when he cracks open that door.
Oh my god!
And this is so hilarious, and I just love the culmination. The ending of this game, I think, is great. Where like he essentially like left and right, he's tossing the X-Men all around the place, and he's walking up, and Deadpool just kind of he stops the action from almost like a bit with the X-Force in the movie, where he just kind of stops the action from he turns to the camera and says, "You know what, guys? Just want to say we're finally here." Almost brings a tear to the eye. You guys have been doing so good, and now here we go. We finally reached this. Push the button, of course. Push the button like for a booty call.
And then, of course, we get we get kind of the extended Deadpool dialogue, like, "Hey, the longer you stand here, the longer I'm just going to be awkwardly judging you."
I know, it's hilarious. And again, if you wait on every point, Tiki, I'll tell you this real quick. The trippiest moment in the whole game, there's a really trippy moment of pause, the most trippy moment. In the second, when he kills the second Sinister clone, the one who's sitting in the chair and he stabs him to the back and like he decapitated, takes a selfie with it and all that stuff.
Sure.
Trippiest moment is if you don't kill him. Basically, if you want to it gives you two options. Like X is like kill him. The red circle button is like wait. Basically, if you wait, so you're not going to believe me if you wait. Here's what happens: some unknown person. Basically, that circle button will create a dialogue with you, where basically it'll ask you your hobbies and everything, and and Deadpool will basically say, "Hey, are you going to push the button or what?" And basically, the circle button will create a dialogue with you, asking your personal interests and everything. Basically, it's like a stranger online, essentially.
Oh my god!
And then Deadpool saying, "Okay, this is a bad idea. You should really just push the X button." And then basically, I kid you not, the situation escalates because if you keep pushing the button, it basically gets to like a whole. It's so realistic. It's so trippy. It's just the circle button just keeps getting more intense. Like, hey, I didn't mean to weird you out. Can we still talk?
Oh my god!
And then basically, it's like saying, "I'm going to come to where you live," and Deadpool says, "Well, I tried to warn you." It's so.
That's ridiculous. It's great.
Okay, anyway, so the big ending is great. You finally push the button. Deadpool he punches Sinister in the crotch. You reveal this big X that he spray painted on the ground, and of course, just punches Sinister in the balls, and then Sinister, the real Sinister, presumably, is crushed by the boot with the dog in tow, and big splat. It's a very gory game, by the way, folks, and that's delightful. It's unabashedly gory. You have options where you can sneak up and kill someone, or like just execute them. And I should have mentioned at the top too. You have a great variety of weapons. You have like katanas, you have sais, you have bear traps, hand grenades. My favorite of choice is mallets. You can use mallets instead of katanas, which is like old school Looney Tunes. And the point is, you have all these variety of weapons. You can kill people in a variety of gruesome graphic styles, but none of them are the same. And so Sinister gets splat, boom, stepped on by the giant Sentinel thing, and of course he that was the real Sinister, right? Cable appears because he gave this really hilarious.
Oh god, this is great. This is the best Cable moment in the whole game.
We have this running gag where very much like the lazy writing gag in Deadpool 2. Cable gives like a BS excuse of like I can't accompany you, Wade, because I have battles to fight in the future that hinge on what you do now. And Deadpool hear crickets, it's Deadpool's looking at the camera like, really? That's what we're going with. So Cable just randomly appear at times because he won't be in the whole game with you. So he appears, and you can tell him what happens.
Well, he just randomly gives like a thumbs up.
And that's where I got the Holly idea, by the way, in the Channel Awesome pitch. It was that moment right there. Basically, Holly's to the side, you're like a bing.
God.
And of course, then Deadpool with, again, Star Wars style. The girls are, it's like the old Star Wars poster where like Luke and Leia, and Leia's like clinging to his leg or something. with the lightsaber in the air. That's where they got the pose from, hence the Star Wars gag earlier on. Roll credits. We're done here. Yahoo! And we see Deadpool the whole time. He's been playing his own game from his apartment.
Which, of course, makes total sense for a Deadpool game. I mean, why wouldn't they do something like that?
And Deadpool's remarking how great his game was, and as the credits are coming. And by the way, so I know that you have the Deadpool rap, which I'll break down just in a moment here when we get to the final thoughts. But aside from that, you have like the Deadpool, like a '70s version of a Deadpool theme song. That is hilarious, and we play that during the credits. And in Deadpool, he's talking with Peter. And Peter says, "Oh well, the game turned out great, and I shouldn't be telling you this, but we're actually not over budget." And Deadpool says, "Hey Peter, yeah, get your checkbook ready. There's all these unnecessary live action explosions that are happening all throughout the credits. You're going over budget." And it's a great end credit sequence.
Yeah.
So that's I think about those.
So final thoughts, Dragon. I'm sorry I can't be more active in the conversation. Obviously, I just watched like an hour and a half Let's Play, and it's really not the full game even. But at the end of the day, I do think the comparison between the Arkham games and this is very very on point. I definitely think that while Arkham puts you in the shoes of Batman and all the emotional turmoil that Batman's going through and all the psychological drama, this puts you in the crazy shoes of Deadpool. This puts you in kind of like the wacky fourth wall breaking world and kind of like the anything can happen quality. And it really does a good job of kind of wrapping up everything about the character that you could want. You know what I mean? I think it's like, again, I don't know exactly how good the actual gameplay is. Judging by what I see of it, I imagine like all of it's really solid. None of it's probably very great on the surface, which isn't an insult. It just means that the game's kind of trying a whole bunch of different things. As I said, Dragon, if the game ever comes out for Switch, I'll definitely get it, and maybe you and I can finally do a Let's Play one of these days. But yeah, I'm glad we finally got the chance to talk about this in the wake of Deadpool 2 and all its success. I'm sorry I didn't have as much to say about it as I hoped I would, but alas, we move forward into the summer and onwards and upwards, buddy.
Yeah. So for me, final thoughts. I wanted to mention this about the rap because this is what interested me about it, is that Team Headkick did Deadpool rap that I was introduced to first through because I heard the Deadpool game had a rap, and I assumed people just meant the '70s music, and it's like, well, it wasn't really a rap.
That's what I assumed too. Yeah.
Exactly, and that wasn't it. So I learned after I saw the Deadpool movie I mentioned before, like aside from like the deep cut kind of Vanessa and Wade scene from the first movie, the whole "you can't buy love, you can rent it for 3 minutes," the whole like every time I see her, like the first time I see her, that whole scene. My main favorite scene is the Team Headkick montage of like finding Francis set to that song, which is kind of a good theme song for Deadpool. It's so catchy, it's like Deadpool going to work as a mercenary. It's great. And so I always loved that song for that reason. I'm not a rap guy. There's very few rap songs I love, and that's probably my favorite rap song of all time. Just the Team Headkick song.
Right.
And I learned that Team Headkick, I knew they had done like there's a lot of remixes of songs and raps especially, and apparently that was a remix. They redid their rap and tailored it towards the movie. But apparently the genesis of that was this game. Team Headkick, I believe, is a YouTube channel where they do songs and raps for a whole bunch of other stuff. And they basically, when the Deadpool game came out, they did a rap based on it, and which is what you saw, Tiki. So the idea is that's the genesis of one of probably my favorite moment from the Deadpool movie, is that video that they made based on this game. So the game had stay power, and I just love like the little subtle interconnected tissue between the games. That's always like that's the main reminder of like what we eventually got with the movie and the fun that this game had, and how close this game got to representing Deadpool, and how again, if the movie never got made, I still could go home happy with this as a representation of Deadpool in other media,
For sure.
And I guess lastly, on the whole, it's a fun, good litmus test for Deadpool. If you want to introduce someone to Deadpool through the R-rated filter, like not to kids, obviously, otherwise show them Ultimate Alliance. If you want to just show someone like the gist of what Deadpool is without the movie, before the movie, you show them this. or like what Deadpool is in the comics. Shown this, you won't be far off. It's Daniel Way's Deadpool, which is a little all over the place, and that's the point. It's like a little bit of everything with Deadpool. It's kind of Daniel Way's Deadpool, and I love the simplicity of it. Again, I'm glad the movie worked out. This would have been but this was very faithful, and with Nolan North, you really can't miss. It's satisfying, but I always feel it never got. I don't know. I think at the end it somewhat got the attention it deserved, but it always could have got a little bit more because I think people just kind of got into the game snobbery of it all. This like really critique the gameplay before the story fun of it all. That's what I've always felt anyway. But it could have always been, could always be a little shorter. You could always there's some repetitive elements of the game. By all means, every game kind of has that. But what game isn't? So in the whole, the Deadpool game was a delight for my life as a Deadpool fan. We finally talked about it, so we got that under our belts. And again, it's kind of if anyone has not seen Deadpool 2 yet, watch the game if you want like a litmus test for some of the great stuff that's going to be in Deadpool 2. I think you'll be happy. So again, Deadpool game, highly recommended.
All right, so that's one Deadpool bucket list podcast, I guess, for you, Dragon, we have in the books. How you feeling?
Feeling fulfilled.
All right, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So, Dragon, you ready to do that 6-hour Freakazoid podcast? Just talk about literally we could do a podcast talking about the podcast that we recorded for Freakazoid.
6. We could do 9.
Oh God. All right. Okay, Dragon. Well, I guess that's it. I don't really have a clever outro in the Deadpool thing, so kind of counting on you to take us out with something.
Deadpool.
Sure. We'll go with that. Oh, hi, Logan. I just shot you.